Hello everyone, I'm excited to share with you what I've labeled as the Opoku-Agyemang formula for improving performance in secondary mathematics and science. So what is the problem that we want to solve with this formula? Well, it is common knowledge that English, mathematics, and the science subjects are not the best of friends for secondary school students, especially in Africa. And performance in these subjects, especially mathematics and science, has been low relative to other subjects, especially in school and public examinations. Now, let us take the results of the West African Examinations Council (WAEC). If we look at the results of candidates over the last 6 years, 2010 to 2016, we found that candidates hardly do well relative to the others in maths and science. Indeed, the data from the results that have been published show that less than 40% of these candidates, score up to or earn up to credit level pass in the subjects. Yet, if our students are not doing well in science and maths, we, the African countries, will have our science and technology development severely compromised. So that's the problem that is emerging. So there's an urgent need for us to find solutions to students' or their achievement in science. People have not been folding their arms over the last several decades, 20 years, 2 decades. There have been intensive efforts to find solutions to this problem. If I have done a review very recently, about 2 months ago, on all the efforts that have been invested in seeing how students can improve their performance, get them to access or to participate well in science, male, female, and they do well in science and mathematics. Indeed, I have provided a number of solutions myself: cooperative learning, humor in science teaching, concept mapping, and a host of others that you find in the literature under my name and the others who have worked with me. But I've encountered a model that works on a large scale. The efforts of researchers that I've quoted in my review are those that will just pilot run with a few subjects. But this is a national experiment, a national model that has been developed by Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyemang and her colleagues in the Ministry of Education of Ghana. So who is Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyemang? She just finished her term as the Honorable Minister of Education of Ghana, and she was very, very successful. We have been watching her with keen interest in Nigeria and the rest of Africa, and we have a record of her landmark achievements as Minister of Education of that great country, Ghana. She was Vice Chancellor of University of Cape Coast in Ghana, and while she was there, the ranking of that university leapt several percentage points up the league table. Are you as anxious as I am to learn about the model? Okay, now let's turn over to Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyemang to give us insight into that model. Over to you, ma'am.
I'm Nana Opoku-Agyemang, former Minister for Education, Republic of Ghana. And in Ghana, the Minister for Education is in charge of everyone from the toddlers right up. Of course, I had 2 deputies and we all teamed up to produce all the things we were able to do. Now, we started from the premise that the children can do much better than they were doing, and that there was no excuse for the population to nearly get to the conclusion that the public basic schools were failing. We thought that yes, if they were failing, whose fault is it? But we didn't think it was a question of ascribing blame. We thought it was a question of finding solutions to the problem. So we did a lot of research work. We found out the performance of these schools over the years. We found out why so many remedial classes were going on in the country and why every other person was rewriting math or science or English. Math and science were particularly acute. So we decided to begin with them. So after looking at the data, we worked with the West African Examinations Council, which is the examining body for the exams at both the basic and the secondary levels. So their cooperation was very important. We got the data from them over the years. We saw the percentages in the past. Marks of these subjects were very low, and there were regional and urban, there were rural and urban disparities, there were school disparities, and we realized that the urban schools were suffering even more. Therefore, having gotten all this data, we also collaborated even more with WAEC, because they set the questions, they do the marking, they do the standardization, they do everything to do with examinations. So we asked them to help us to deal with this problem. They gave us the external examiners, those who set the questions, those who do the grading, and again we worked with all of them to help us. But we also recognized that there were schools that were doing very well, and therefore there were teachers in those schools that were teaching the same Ghanaian children who were passing and passing well. So we thought that they could also be very, very good resources. We also talked to the students. In everything we did at the ministry, we thought that the people at the receiving end were very, very important. The student who liked maths, what was it about maths that they found so interesting? The students who disliked maths, what was it about maths that he or she disliked? Why do they think they were not doing so well with maths? What was the attitude towards maths? We discovered that some of them almost had a mental block. It was as if it wasn't possible. And our job was to let them know that, yes, you can pass maths. It's not magic, it's not frightening. Actually, learning maths can be interesting. So having established this, very, very painfully, but persistently, we did a ranking of all the schools according to their performance in these subjects. And then we picked 500 schools from the bottom. And then we let the headmaster come with a science and maths teacher for us to understand and to work together in finding a solution to this problem. So the important thing for us was to let everyone know that these results are not acceptable. We can change these results. It's not a question of money. Maybe money is important, but it's a question of where we target that money to get the better results for the big picture, which is improving the results in science and math. Because we're drawing our children back, and more than that, we also know the importance of these subjects for national development. So we worked with the teachers that were having, let me put it, little difficulty bringing their students along. That is, the teachers who were very efficient and whose results were admirable. And another agency at the ministry that was extremely instrumental was what we call CENDLOS, CENDLOS for short. It's a Center for Distance and Open Learning. And they also came along, and we ensured that we selected teachers for the subjects, let's say science or math. And these teachers will teach from topic to topic with the examples and so on, and then we'll film them. We filmed almost every subject. But our priority was science and math, which was posing particular challenges to the children. And having filmed them, we put them on CD-ROMs, and we also put them on computers for the schools. So we started focusing on computers that were powered by solar, because in all of this, we know that some of the urban schools are also struggling, but on the average, the rural schools had a greater challenge. Why we wanted to get at, why we wanted to get at was to ensure that if a child went to the lab or had access to the CD-ROM, they could play it and self-learn. If they had a problem with a particular aspect of mathematics, they will see a teacher who looks like their own teacher, speaking the same English they can understand, using examples around them, and then they can play it again and again until they get it. That teacher in that area, who is also challenged as far as teaching this subject is concerned, will also look at his own peer, breaking down this whole concept in ways that are understandable, are usable, and that will help the children to move on to the next level. And we consider this very important because we know that if the children didn't pass their science and they didn't pass their math, they were not going to move up. We hadn't gotten to a level where it didn't matter. Actually, whether they moved up or not, we thought that they should pass because all of these have a lot to do with the child's confidence, with the person's confidence to know that they can tackle other things and do well. We thought it was too early in their lives to think that they were saddled with failure. In terms of the language, I got to the level of proposing the language policy. I thought that the best thing to do was to return to using the local language in the early years, forming their linguistic base solidly, on which case you can build any other language. But if you start them too early on a language they don't speak well, their parents don't speak, the teachers sometimes have challenges in, then you'll end up miseducating the children and not educating them. So that's where we left off, and we're hoping that others will pick the baton. And the results had already begun to show, and that really came as a big surprise because I know that most of these interventions need time to grow and they need time to flower. So we noticed also that no child had hit the 500 mark in the BEC. The top will be 600, meaning that nobody made any mistake anywhere, which we know is not very likely. So when we came, I think in 2013, the highest was 499. And I was saying, where was that one mark to have the whole country break the 500 ceiling? But with these interventions and others, already in the next year, we set the record of breaking the 500 mark ceiling. I think there were 11 students who were able to make the 500 and more, and the highest I think was 507. The following year, which was 2015, we got I think 4 students or so, but still breaking the 500 ceiling, and the highest I think was 504. Maybe I'm mixing my figures a bit, but they are quite close. But in 2016, after we had run this for a little while, the highest was 564, and 3,994 students had broken the 500 ceiling. What I was waiting for was an analysis from the West African Examinations Council on the disaggregation of the 3,994 students. Where did they come from what schools, the schools that we have selected, the failing schools, did they get any? But I'm very hopeful that when the results come, they'll be positive because, again, this country had introduced the President's Award. And the President's Award, that is again after the BEC, that's a basic education certificate exam. The country will select top 2 performers from every region. So it's normally 20 kids who get the award. And over the years, you look at the records, maybe 1 or 2 will come from the public schools. Again, confirming that if you have anything to do with yourself, you don't go to the public schools. And again, we thought that we should turn things around. Again, by focusing and targeting where we thought the problems were. And again, I'm very happy to announce that in 2016, out of the 20 children, I think 12 or so had come from the basic schools. For us, these are the intangibles in education, but we think these are very important in education. Yes, the buildings are important, the equipments are important, retraining teachers. We introduced a TTEL, Transforming Teacher Education and Learning, because as we're working on the teachers in the field, we also needed to work on the teachers in training so that we don't come back with the same issues. So we're working around the clock. Those teachers in the system that didn't have training, we're encouraging them to take distance learning. So they didn't need to abandon their classrooms for 4 years to go and camp at a university when most of them didn't even have the money to do so. So they could do it via distance. So we're looking at those. We're looking at those with training that we could upgrade. We're looking at those in training. So maybe they could be differently oriented. So these were some of the interventions we made at that level. And thank God we were already beginning to see that there were some differences.